busy parking lot.
It's what?
It's a busy parking lot.
Yeah, it is busy. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the school committee meeting of January 9th, 2024. Before you have an agenda, we have an approval, please. Second. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Opening up for public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to start with the January 2024 student enrollment, so you'll see that on the second page of your packet. We are up by 8 students from December, from 1,697 students to 1,705 students. So the 8 students are well distributed across all of our 4 schools. We have 1 additional student at NES. We have 3 additional students at NIS, 1 additional student at CPS, and 3 additional at the high school. So we will see what that looks like going into February and March, as sometimes those months tend to be months where we do see upticks in enrollment because of the school year changes in Central and South America. So we are looking to see if there's going to be a little bit more growth in the coming months. So next, I'd like to do one of my most favorite things, and that is to present awards. So we have some very deserving students here in the audience, and each year I get to do special awards for 3 amazing seniors. So the annual Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Certificate of Academic Excellence is given to 1 student, and the top 5% of the senior class the student is in excellent academic standing and shows outstanding achievement and as a model student. So the student who was chosen for this award is well known in the school community. Aside from being a high-achieving student who pushes himself to do the very best that he can, he is heavily involved in Veritas, National Honor Society, and has a huge responsibility as the youngest summer employee for the Nantucket Moorings Company. His core values include respect, hard work, and the importance of helping others. So I'm very proud to present this award to Henry Crosby. Come on up, Henry. You want to go around the front and shake hands with the school committee members? That would be great. Congrats.
Congrats.
Congratulations. And he's a great dancer as well, in his bio.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay.
Congratulations.
So the other 2 awards that I have the pleasure of presenting are the National School Development Council Awards for academic growth and student leadership in learning. And these awards are given to 2 seniors who have consistently pursued a high level of academic effort. They have served as positive role models in the student body, and they exemplify admirable character and accomplishment. So one of these recipients of this award is a strong student who plans to pursue studies in environmental science after graduation. She is the senior class president, a prominent member of the varsity girls basketball team, as well as the varsity girls tennis team. And her core values include community. She is a very active member of the Nantucket community, and empathy for others. So I'm thrilled to present this award to Joan Harris.
Congratulations, Joan.
Congratulations, Joan.
Okay. And the second NSDC award recipient is a student who came from Brazil to Nantucket 7 years ago and has thrived ever since she got here. She has a passion for languages, particularly Spanish, English, and Chinese. She loves animals and volunteers at Nisha when she has the time. And she aspires to become a veterinarian. She loves making new friends, helping others, and is quite good at sewing, so I hear. Her core values include education, as she sees the importance of taking advantage of the opportunities afforded to her, and family as well. So I'm very happy to present this award to Ana Julia Januaro.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
It's always my favorite part is to have students here and be able to give them things. So that's wonderful. Congratulations to all of you. Much appreciated. Okay. So continuing on, in your packet, I've included a copy of the completed Nantucket Public Schools section of the FY23 Annual Town Report. This report includes a full reflection of the 22-23 school year from the central office, from each of the 4 schools, the Special Education Services Department, the English Learner Education Department, Technology, Facilities and Grounds, and the Nantucket Community School. I will not bore you by going through details of the report as you have had this, so I just wanted to give it to you as a copy for you to have ahead of time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. I did already receive a question from Dr. Leppery around wording, so I will make sure that that is changed. The report has not been published yet, so there is time for that to be corrected, and I'm happy to answer any other questions around that. So,
I was surprised that the highest number of students was in 2022. For some reason, I thought it was later than that. So,
no, actually it is.
but yeah, it's great. Thank you. I know it's a lot of work that goes into this. So,
Yes,
any
thank you.
comments or typos?
There was one little typo. I sound like you, Pauline.
That's fine.
I can't
Please,
help
please
it.
share and let me know so that I can.
Yeah,
have it
I'll
corrected.
email it to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And just a few other updates. As you know, Jennifer Erickson, our former tech director, retired last month. We are thankful to have Joanne Johnson step in as acting tech director for the next few months while we repost the position. Joanne has been with the district for many years and knows all of the quirks that the technology brings. She knows the tech team very well and understands the priorities in the district. So we are very happy to have her as our acting tech director. We will post the position again later this month for a July 1st start in the hopes that we find a tech director who is ready to step in. And that is all I have for today.
Great. Thank you. Well, we'll move on to presentations and discussions. And I'd like to invite our town manager, Libby Gibson, to come up, and Brian Turbitt, who's our director of finance. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much. I'm Libby Gibson, town manager, and Brian, Turbitt, is our director of municipal finance. We've been here, I don't know how many years now, reviewing the town admin general fund budget recommendations. So we're going to go over with you tonight what we reviewed with the select board on December 13th. We have a public hearing at the select board meeting tomorrow night. It's an annual public hearing on the budget. We'll try to make brief the parts that are non-school related in our presentation, but we do think it's important that everybody understand the big picture of the budget, because there are a lot of parts to it. It's not just town and school. There's a lot of programming throughout. And I want to thank the superintendent and the school finance director for their help with this budget. We've talked quite a bit throughout the last several months, and I think we're all more or less good with what is being presented. And the help and communication and goodwill between the town and the school is really excellent. So thank you guys for that. I think Brian, are you going to start it? Oh yeah, I'm starting. Okay, so just a little bit of overview. Section 4.2D3 of the town charter requires the town manager to prepare and submit to the select board an annual operating budget. So what is in the presentation here and what was in the board's packet is a summary containing an overview of updated projections, our recommendations, and next steps. There's also a draft budget message, which I think they have. And once the public hearing has concluded tomorrow night, we'll make that a final budget message, and it will be posted online. It explains the recommendations, projections, and various issues in detail. Just to, again, overview how this budget process progresses. It began with a review, this fiscal 25 budget began with a review of preliminary projected expenses and revenues with the Finance Committee on September 12th. We issued budget instructions to our departments on September 22nd. We did a projection review with the Select Board on September 27th, and we reviewed every general fund and enterprise fund department budget individually with each department and with the cabinet as a whole from mid-October through early December. And along the way, we take in, analyze, seek out, research, reconsider, evaluate new or additional information. I guess that's slide 2 there. Our budget and objectives on the town side include our standard objective, which is to keep the recommended operating budget within projected revenue. That is priority 1. The Select Board strategic plan has these 5 focus areas, and our main focus is housing. We are focusing resources on infrastructure maintenance. We're continuing to address the increasing importance of emerged and emerging areas under our sustainability category, including the items shown there: stormwater, coastal resiliency, and water quality. Those are becoming more and more at the forefront. We are trying to address staffing issues, including employee retention, with a variety of strategies. Overall, we are trying to maintain flexibility with the levy limit and the use of free cash with our budget. We're trying not to spend all of our projected revenue. Economic indicators are uncertain, and we need to be able to stabilize if there were to be an economic downturn, or if something unexpected arises. You just never know. I'll try to go through this pretty quick because it's probably not of terrible interest to the school, but these are our initiatives that are specific to the strategic plan that are recommended in the fiscal 25 budget and or are ongoing. And we actually did review most of these at a workshop the Select Board had on October 23rd, which was dedicated to strategic planning. We have additional priorities shown here. They're not necessarily linked to items in the fiscal 25 budget, but they may be or will be in the fairly near future. I guess unless you really want me to, I won't go through each of these, but they are going to be community related issues. The planning for our island home, the parks master plan, that actually has some link to the school's athletic complex planning, and I think there have been discussions between the park and rec manager and the school about that. The Baxter Road Alternative Access Project is potentially a very costly project, which may or may not be able to be covered by betterments. That is what we're going to be looking at. However, the town has to come up with the money up front, and then betterments can be assessed at a later time, so it will take a while to reclaim the funds. The DPW is under review to relocate at a more I shouldn't really say mid-island, at a more central island location off Shadbush Road, and that is going to be a pricey project. The Surfside Area Water Main Extension and Transportation Improvement Project is underway now, and while we have started the project, it is becoming more than what was originally anticipated, with supply chain issues and real estate issues such as the obtainment of easements, and now we need property for certain types of stormwater drainage infrastructure, and all of that is going to cost additional money for this particular project. Capital planning and project management is a priority. Public safety staffing and training of police and fire and marine department. Somerset Sewer Extension is something we are seeking design funding for at the 2024 annual town meeting, and then it will be, as you might imagine, a very large project going forward of millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. And management of town-controlled housing, owned and rented. We are working on our internal management of that. We're finding that more and more we have don't have enough resources currently to manage the rental housing that we both own and rent to employees and are renting for employees. Okay. Retention of town employees remains a dedicated focus. Staffing deficiencies and shortages are real across the nation and region. Our situation obviously is exacerbated by housing challenges and high cost of living. We have a variety of measures we're working on to initiate, continue, or expand, and those are shown on this slide. Compensation issues have been addressed in our collective bargaining contracts and with non-union staff. We will continue to review our compensation to try to ensure that it remains competitive. These increases in compensation will have long-term impacts on the budget, and that is another reason to be cautious with revenue and spending projections. Brian's going to take us through the next few slides.
Thank you, Libby. Good evening, everyone. So from September, when we started this process through late November, we worked very hard to try to really do a deep dive and analysis of where we think the revenue was going to end up to be able to fund all the initiatives and requests. We're projecting $152,389,000 in revenue that could be raised. And before I get too much deeper into the presentation, one thing that I would like to point out is yesterday in the news, Governor Healy enacted for the first time since 2016 9 C cuts totaling $375 million, mostly directed at local earmarks. Most of those were cut in half. But what was of particular note in the article was the fact that through December, the state is running almost $700 million behind their revenue projection for fiscal 24, which has led them to decrease their consensus revenue for fiscal 25 by, at this point, a minimum of $200 million. So I don't know that they're going to really do a lot to state aid this year. Hopefully things will start to turn around in the next 6 months when tax season and tax revenue comes in. But it is something that we are internally watching to make sure that we'll be able to continue to fund and the initiatives. And it also highlights the fact that some of the revenues we rely on are driven by people continuing to come to the island and visit the island. So I just think it's important that we all keep that kind of on the back burner, but it is something we're looking at. Recommended expenses in this budget are $152,252,000, which would leave, if this were to be approved at the annual town meeting, $136,443 in unused levy capacity, which is relatively low given the long time that we have between now and annual town meeting to potentially deal with any issues that may come up that would need to be addressed in the fiscal 25 budget. In a later slide you'll see, which is one of the reasons that we're recommending that we reserve about $3 million worth of free cash that may be able to deal with any issues between now and town meeting or end of year after the tax rate has been set. So that is one way that we would deal with this. But this is, I think, a little bit lower than we might like, but in order to fund the initiatives, that's where we've landed at this point. This next slide just compares the presentation from last year to this year. You will see that we have reduced the real and personal property taxes by the $136,000 of unused levy capacity. So we are raising the exact amount of $152,252,000 to match the expenses. Below you'll see the incremental changes in departments. Non-departmental of $42 million is debt service and health insurance, regular insurance, and so things of that nature. Special appropriations are, the majority of that is made up in either Article 9 or various funding, including all the transfers to the enterprise funds. On this slide, we really just kind of highlight that, much like almost every community in the Commonwealth, tax revenue is the largest source of revenue for the island. Unlike many of the other communities across the Commonwealth, rooms and meals tax make up 10%, which is the next largest category for us. Many of the communities across the Commonwealth, state aid is the next largest category. We're a little bit different in the fact that the majority of our state aid that comes in is Chapter 70 related. This slide here just breaks out the expenses from the first slide that we had into percentage-based town and school, municipal school department expenses, non-departmental expenses, and then special appropriations. All relatively similar in the breakouts, not a lot of deviation from prior years in those allocations. So this is where we get into really kind of the nuts and bolts of the presentation and what the town manager and town administration recommended. For town operational expenses, we're recommending 10.9 million, which does include little over $1 million of expense increase requests, new initiatives or funding in the budget, including any one-time expenditures that may be included. Town salaries of $28,687,000. It does include all approved contractual obligations in that number, and that $28 million number does include an additional $931,000 of recommended expense increase requests in the form of additional personnel on the municipal side. We worked very closely with not only the superintendent but Martin, the CFO of the school. We're recommending $6,832,000 of school operational expenses, including $400,000 of expense increase request allocations, and salaries of $33,348,000. Health insurance, we're projecting a 10% increase at this point to $13.4 million and for active currently employed employees, and then retirees of $4,492,000. I will tell you that it is trending a little bit better, but again, a little lower than the projected increase. It did end up a little lower last year. However, we are still 6 months before the end of the year, so a lot can happen in terms of charges this year that would cause us to think that we might need to raise that rate a little bit higher than where it's trending right now. General insurance, just under a 15% increase, which is one category we're watching at $4,693,000. The primary driver in this is our property insurance, and as most people are aware, we've had numerous natural disasters across the entire country, not necessarily here, but what happens across the entire 50 states does impact the rates for us, and the insurance companies are really starting to focus on your valuations of your property. So it's something we're paying attention to, and we're trying to determine the best way to move forward to mitigate that increase. Debt service is $12,447,000, which is strictly driven by the permanently issued debt waterfalls and amortization schedule. Retirement of $7,044,000, which is an 8.5% increase over the actual amount paid this year. That is on a funding schedule, so we are confident in the 8.5% increase, and the pension system for Barnstable County should be fully funded for the town by 2038, which is in compliance with the previously approved plan. The enterprise fund subsidies, $23,405,000. As most people will recall, that's made up of solid waste, Our Island Home. It also includes the $6.5 million to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund within that number, and $512,000 for the recently adopted last year's annual town meeting Stormwater Enterprise Fund. Mosquito control, which is a separate line item in the budget, $185,000. That was an override, so that increases, the allocation increases 2.5% every year. Health and Human Services, no change at $825,000. That is $650,000 from the town's annual operating budget and $175,000 from the special purpose stabilization that was created a few years ago. Mainly, the money in that is from cannabis. At this point, will be the local option tax and potentially any opioid fund settlement funds. County assessment very well may change, and most likely will change based on the revenues that they're receiving. But as of the presentation, we were projecting $183,552. The reserve fund, no change, the same $500,000. Unpaid bills, at the time of this presentation, we did not have any. Unfortunately, we have gotten a couple, not very many. Those primarily would be funded once it's all settled with a recommendation from free cash at the annual town meeting. Other post-employment benefits, which is all the long-term liability for health insurance for retirees. From the annual raise and appropriate or other revenues, the same $500,000 that we have consistently been contributing. The Affordable Housing Trust, an additional $1,013,000, which was an agreement when we started allocating $1.6 million and authorized a $20 million borrowing. We continue to allocate the unused capacity for their operations. Cherry sheet charges, $1,461,000. This is level funded as of the actual budget for fiscal 24. Given the timing for our budget, we have no idea what the state's going to do in terms of local aid or cherry sheet charges. The main driver for the town of Nantucket on cherry sheet charges is primarily the allocation for NRTA. Community school, no change in discussion with both the superintendent and the CFO, same $600,000. Minimum capital funding requirement, which is in the town code, requires 1% of real and personal property tax revenue collected, as well as local estimated receipts, must be allocated to capital expenditures, and that number, given the fact that our revenues have continued to rise, has been rising rather fast. This year is projected to be $1,589,000 that will be allocated for capital spending amongst the school and the town. All told, from the previous slides, $152,252,000. I do this one and then you do it again. So, as the town manager indicated, we go through a very rigorous process, much like I'm sure the school does on their side, with respect to expense increase requests. Departments submitted $2,799,000 worth of requests for increases, made up of $579,900 in one-time expense increase request and ongoing of $2,220,000. We are recommending $2,341,195, broken out by one-time expenses of $417,000 and ongoing expenses to be funded through available tax levy, potential revenue increases, which we don't foresee many more than what we've included in this budget, of $1,923,000. And I will let the town manager take you on a high level through the EIRs.
Thank you, Brian. So our expense increase request process is based on criteria that we apply to every single EIR that we receive. And those include whether or not there's a legal mandate for the item. We give high prioritization for requests that support the Select Board strategic plan or are recommended in a staffing study we conducted in 2018, whether it improves departmental operations or efficiency, if it's necessary to support new programming or existing programming, and whether or not it provides a continuity of operations. We rank them using a point system. I'm going to tell you a point that I made to the board about EIRs that I made at our meeting, which is perhaps a little bit of TMI for you, but I want you to hear it because it's a big picture item. We received, as was mentioned, a significant number of EIRs, and while we have actually funded many of them, we can't fund all of them, and we have to take the big picture into consideration. We are very fortunate to be able to fund what we are recommending. The revenue increase from the room occupancy tax is allowing us to put forward recommendations to address areas which cannot progress without additional resources. However, we want to continually caution that we exercise conservative use of that revenue. For one thing, some of the budget items being recommended are ongoing and they will require continued funding into the future. Secondly, we believe this funding source is still not at a point where we can rely on what we're getting fully. The amount received in fiscal 23 and so far in fiscal 24 and being projected for fiscal 25 are decent numbers. They're a little bit conservative, but due to economic impacts that we cannot control and possible changes in how short-term rentals are regulated in Nantucket, we need to be cautious with those. Personnel. So I won't go through all of these with you, but we are recommending 10 new positions. There's an additional 2 under review, and they are all outlined there. The new positions would help implement board goals. They are needed to focus on town infrastructure and project management deficiencies, as well as positions needed to maintain a level of municipal services that a growing community requires, including public safety and planning. That's good. On the expense side, we have a series of one-time expenses to address a variety of issues: communications, a replacement vehicle, project management capabilities, things of that nature. And we have a significant number of ongoing expense requests to address programs and initiatives related to the board strategic plan, costs associated with additional new employees, and increases in utility and facility maintenance costs. Brian's going to do the next couple.
So as mentioned in the first slide dealing with town EIRs, $1,923,000 is recommended to come from tax levy and other general revenues. Consistent with the free cash policy, one-time expenses are funded by free cash, so we're recommending $417,900 be used for that. All told, the $2,341,000 of expense increase request recommended by town administration. This slide shows you how we're recommending currently to utilize the free cash. Free cash was certified at $22,066,000. One-time town expense increase request $417,000. We did allocate at the special town meeting supplemental funding for the town housing project, the seasonal / potentially short-term housing, $3,200,000. That project will actually be getting underway very soon. The one time there were some requests from, the school for some additional increase requests that were considered one time. We have funded $400,000 of that. Town and school capital request, $12,577,000, most if not all of which has gone through the capital program committee request. Unpaid bills, as I had mentioned, there are a couple. They're very small, so this shouldn't really impact the free cash number much, if at all. We are, again, given the nature and size of the free cash that we've had over the last few years, we're recommending an additional $1 million go into both the general purpose stabilization fund and $1 million into the capital stabilization fund. The other post-employment stabilization fund would handle any leave payouts for people that leave that have hit the requisite number of years. Last year we put $1.5 million into it. I can tell you that the liability is well in excess of the $1.5 million. It's closer to almost $3 million by the time we calculate it all. So we are recommending an additional $750,000 go into that fund to stabilize and be able to use for payouts as people either retire or move on if they've hit the years to get those payouts. And then we did make a decision to increase the OPEB trust fund contribution by $500,000 from free cash, so that we would actually in fiscal 25 be putting $1 million into that. Our unfunded liability approaches $90 million, and there's about $7 million in that fund, so we have a very long way to go for that to be fully funded. After accounting for all of those recommendations that town administration made, as I mentioned, we did try to leave a little bit of free cash left to potentially deal with any issues between now and the end of the fiscal year, especially once the tax rate is set. That amount is $2,220,000 at this point.
All right, we're getting close to the end. State aid is always somewhat of a concern, and while the state hasn't finalized its budget yet for fiscal 25, we're projecting level funding, and we are now taking into consideration what Brian mentioned earlier with the state's revenue projections. None of the citizen warrant articles that have been submitted for the 2024 annual town meeting are included in our recommendations. It is typical not to include those in our budget. So if any of those are approved and determined to be implemented, there could be a cost impact which we have not fully analyzed yet and would have to deal with at some point. As mentioned earlier, we don't believe we've had a normal year yet of short-term rental revenue since the expansion of the room occupancy tax to short-term rentals in 2019, and the impact of any potential future town regulations and or pending litigation is obviously unknown, and there are some of those going on with short-term rentals. Supply chain and labor issues are having a noticeable impact on certain areas of town operations. You all may have noticed some of this too with different projects. Parts, equipment, vehicles. It's not a problem unique to Nantucket, but it is a problem. The costs of projects contained in our coastal resiliency plan are astronomical, and we will need to prioritize those and seek alternate sources of funding wherever possible. We have a significant time investment into the preparation for the expiration of our waste services agreement for the operation of the solid waste facility, and I'm sure you're very interested in this. We are having a comprehensive review of the solid waste facility and operations this Thursday at the 11th, starting at 6 o'clock. It's a hybrid. You don't even have to come to the meeting. You can tune into it and have it on in the background while you're eating dinner or whatever. While we have a retirement assessment projection, we've not actually received the definitive increase from Barnstable County Retirement Association yet, but we're expecting it shortly. And we've stricken Harbor Place project because that's been on our outstanding item list for quite some time, but it really hasn't progressed at this point. Almost there. Future potential costs. We're back to a big picture situation. a number of the future potential costs that are going to need to be covered somewhere, somehow, some way in the overall town budget planning are listed here, and some of them have already been covered in our presentation. We have a lot of plans out there. They're all in various stages of being updated, started, implemented. Some of them contain projects that have a cost impact. Some contain projects that are overlapping and can be somewhat combined. Employee retention and housing. In addition to town employee housing, community workforce housing is an ongoing goal and has associated costs, and there are numerous parallel efforts at work with affordable housing. We now have an IT position dedicated to cybersecurity, which is fantastic, but the cost could be enormous if the town's system becomes compromised from a cybersecurity attack, as you well know. It is worth routinely noting the need to be vigilant with cybersecurity. The 5-year general fund budget forecast is a forward-looking projection as to what mandates, requirements, replacements, changes in plan, or other costs we might be facing in the near future. Regulatory or other unfunded mandates may arise which require resources, and sometimes we just don't know what they are until they are on us. Solid waste, at the board meeting we extensively reviewed this. NRTA service modifications could have an impact on the general fund budget through the state assessment to the town. The state is going to be undertaking a pilot program for free public transit service throughout the state, and Nantucket will most likely be one of those communities, and that may be taking place this summer. So hopefully the state will be funding the lost revenue from that, but going forward it's a little unclear about how that would work. PFAS costs remain a high concern, and while they're largely unknown, regulatory requirements are most definitely on the way from the state and federal government, and that may necessitate significant capital and operating costs in the fairly near future. I mentioned Baxter Road alternative access, and I noted it again on this slide at the board meeting because it's so significant and it's also very active. An area not specifically shown on this slide, but which we mentioned at the board meeting, and we'll just mention it to you, is real estate. We have many more initiatives underway or pending than we have staff resources to implement, including, you may or may not be familiar with our town yard sale program, which involves the conveyance of parcels of unused or surplus town land to abutters for revenue, and they can add to their property. But that requires a lot of input from a staff person, and we don't have that staff person right now. There are also leases, licenses, requests, monitoring, processing, management, encroachments, general monitoring of town property for misuse. As mentioned earlier, we are working on how to get these issues more effectively dealt with existing funded positions, but it's a bit of a stretch. We're not certain yet what additional operational costs there may or may not be with expanded new facilities as we are planning, or expanded facilities and or new facilities like DPW, Island Home, potential new school in the fairly near future. It depends on what they are. If they are replacements, such as Island Home and DPW, there may not be much of a cost increase from the operational expense of existing facilities, because most likely with energy and other efficiencies that would be built in, there would be a little bit of a less cost to run them. However, if we repurpose them, then we're going to have more costs. And completely new facilities obviously will be an additional cost. Next steps, we're kind of well into this at this point, but as I mentioned, we have the select board's annual public hearing tomorrow on the budget, and hopefully that will end up with an endorsement of the recommended fiscal 25 general fund budget. We then go to the finance committee, and from mid-January to mid-March, the finance committee will review general fund and enterprise fund budgets, including the school and other financial appropriations. Town meeting starts on Tuesday, May 7th, and we are most likely to have, in addition to the regular town election for the officers, we will have a number of debt exclusions and a capital exclusion most likely for the election, which will be on Tuesday, May 21st. And we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for listening
Thank
to
you.
all of that.
Tim. Any questions?
After budgeting so much.
This is my sixth one.
Oh my gosh, no questions from me either.
Are you sure you don't want to tackle something here?
You can think about it, and we'll come back next week
Yeah.
and answer all of them.
That's
We will.
No, this is great, and as always, your presentations are so thorough and entertaining, because I do get the little nuances that you throw in.
They're dry. I get it, and we've, this is hours and hours and hours of not really exciting stuff, so we try to spice it up a little when we have to.
Well, it's appreciated. And I've got a
Thank
whole new
you.
vision for my dinner table conversation.
Well, when we get to solid waste, that's going to be really great.
Thanks, Libby.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. All right, we'd like to invite Sherri Lewis to come up next, please, to present on the vocal data.
If you can bear with me for just a moment, I'm going to try and pull my presentation up
Of
since
course.
it's not queued, and if not, then we'll have to do it without it.
Do you need assistance?
I may.
Sure.
I may need some technical assistance. So, so you can either, you can go to your own email and pull it up from there if you want. You can add your title. Or we can, you can turn this off? Yeah. Share everything. It's nps.org, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then I go to, I have it in my drive. So can I just go to my email from here?
to your tab. And then Google Drive.
Okay. Thank you for your help, I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for your patience. It should be up any minute now.
Is it the wall plate? Sorry.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your
Okay,
help.
no problem.
And thank you again for your patience. So views of climate
and learning, which is also known as vocal, is based off of the Castle wheel, and which are the different systems of social emotional learning. So we're looking at self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. This is a survey that is given at the end of the MCAS test for all students, and it measures the students' views on their school climate. And these are the areas that they're looking at. So the vocal data tells us about 9 different areas, or 9 subcategories under 3 different areas, which are the engagement dimension, environmental, and safety dimension. So what they're looking at is the cultural competencies, participation, relationships, discipline, instruction, mental health, bullying, emotional safety, and physical safety. And then when you break it down just a little bit more, when they're talking about cultural competence and relationships, they're really looking at how the students are interacting with the staff in the school. Participation, how are the students engaging? Are they feeling challenged? With safety, I think that's pretty self-explanable with the emotional, physical, and cyberbullying. And then the environment. In terms of the instructional environment, does the environment support the learning? Do students feel heard when there is a discipline issue? When we look at our vocal data for Nantucket Public Schools and we compare it to that of the state, in all 4 areas we are pretty close to where the state is as a whole, which is good. It doesn't mean that we don't have areas for improvement. Our challenge right now, or actually, before we get to that, so this is a sample of some of the questions that are asked during that survey at the end of MCAS, which you guys can just kind of read through. But as students are answering these questions, it's based on the last 30 to 90 days of what has happened in their school year. So it really is a broader overview as opposed to what is just going on in that moment or what just happened in that week. So the problem that we had this year with the data, because this is the first year that it's been released because of COVID, is that with the survey, if there are fewer than 50 participants, then the data is suppressed. For specialized categories, when we start looking at subgroups like students that might be on an IEP or minority populations or socioeconomic status, those groups are even smaller. So if it's 10 students or less, that data is suppressed. So our hope is to encourage the staff members who are proctoring the MCAS this year to really ask students to take that extra time, even though they're burned out from taking the MCAS probably when they're done, but to really take the time to answer these questions so that we get a breakdown of what their specific responses are to the questions. We have a better idea of how they're feeling about the school climate, and we can identify areas that may need some improvement. Are there any questions?
Why are they given after MCAS? I mean, that makes no sense to me. I mean, they want to get out of there,
Yeah,
or
that
they're burned out.
that's a great question, and maybe one we can pose to the state, because that's just the way that it's laid out.
If I may, through the chair, from what I understand, it's a time that they can gather the data at that one time from all of the students who are basically captive participants, whether they want to or not. So that's really the reason behind it. Is it ideal? Absolutely
No.
not. It is not the right time to be offering a survey like that. However, if that is the only time that they assume that we can pull together students of the same grade at the same time who are basically under the same conditions, then that is the most, they felt that that's the most appropriate time to give it.
You're not sold, are you?
I'm not so. No.
Chantal? Laura?
No questions, thank you.
Couple of questions. Is it all the grades? Every grade that takes MCAS gets this?
I believe it is every grade that takes MCAS. So 3, 5. Gosh, I don't know off the top of my
3,
head.
4, 5,
3, 4, 5.
6, 7, 8, and 10.
Thank you.
Is it mandated or is it optional?
The survey, it's optional.
Do you have an idea of what the percentage is of completion of our kids?
I would say definitely less than 50% based on the suppression of the data.
Is it too early to ask what are some of the improvements that we've put in place from looking at the information?
We don't have enough information to actually kind of tease out what needs to be addressed. If we go back and we look at these questions that are asked, if more students participated, we could get a breakdown of, that students may feel that they're not being heard when they're being disciplined, or like you look at the bullying topic, we may find that students are not feeling safe because they're feeling that they're bullied, but without more students participating so that the data is released, we won't be able to break it down into those specific topics.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is not.
No, I know it's not us.
As I
I'm
started
just-
to put
it's
it together, I was
just
like, wait a second, I don't have a lot of information here because we just don't have, the data just is not there, unfortunately. So,
If I may, through the chair, this is still a newer survey, and it's not something that all districts have been paying attention to as much as now after the pandemic. So for that reason, there's still training going on, et cetera. But I think what we need to do as a school district and in schools is we need to support students so that they understand the importance of this survey so that we can get some of that data. There are other culture and climate surveys that we've been giving. One is through tiered focus monitoring as a requirement for civil rights. I know that other schools have been offering surveys to gather information about their students, where their students are, but this is the most comprehensive survey, and so it would really do us, it would be an advantage to us to try and encourage our students to do the survey so that we could have a release of the data, because one of the most frustrating things that Sherri ran into this year was she was ready to pull the data and create the presentation, but all of a sudden there's nothing to look at other than a comparison, a very general comparison to the state. And that is not what we are looking for. We're looking for something a little bit more in depth. So, so how can we get that? The only way we can get that is to encourage our students to take it. So
Could we ask to do it at a different time?
I don't think we have that option at all.
But could you have pizza and some Cokes? I mean, it seems to me that there's ways to lighten the atmosphere, and you probably get a higher response rate.
The reason why we can't do it at a different time is because it's actually part of the MCAS test. When students are taking the test, it's like, you know how you do that? Please take a nice survey at the end of my experience. That's what that's what it is. So all we can do is try to support students by saying we really need you to take that survey at the end. We hope you can do that.
Do you have a rough idea of how long the survey is supposed to take?
it's not supposed to be that long. I would say it's about 10 to 15 minutes. It's a quick answer questions.
Yeah. Just a really silly time to try and get kids who want to get out of being tested. Well, thank you. Thanks, Sherri.
Thank
so
you for your
much.
patience again.
Yeah, of course. All right, we have some budget development presentations. We'll start with facilities. Mr. Chip Bruni, would you like to join us?
Should take about a half an hour or something.
I was thinking more 4.
You guys have all the graphs and everything?
I don't think we have presentations ready, so just what you've got.
Okay. I gave each of you a copy of breakdown of the utilities bills. Nothing dramatic there, just slight increases. Payroll is our biggest expenditure, and I will say I have a great team working with me. Dimo Boychev at the high school and CPS, Barry Mailu at the intermediate school, and Alita Tahad at the elementary school. We've added a new position of assistant supervisor at the high school to help Demo out because he's got CPS and the high school. So Jorge Vivas is our new assistant, so he's doing a great job. And Michelle Kramers keeps everything organized and keeps everything running. We are fully staffed, and we're not really asking for anything at this time, so we're pretty good. That's all I got.
Thank you.
All right.
Any question? You're not done yet, Mr. Computer.
Oh, come on.
This is where Dr. Lepre usually has about 15 or 20 questions. Come on,
Martin?
Come on, Tim. Any
It's interesting,
questions?
the increase in the price of oil.
Yeah. I'm not sure what we can do about that, you know?
I think there's things we can do, but that's,
The
That's an
turbine's
offer.
going.
Any other questions from the? Yeah.
I'm curious, as we're looking to, I think we keep having the conversation of a potential new facility, or we will eventually get to that point. Are we looking to any green energy options that would help offset some of these utility bills?
Certainly with all the development we're doing and all the plans we have, we're including that information, and we're looking that way too. Yeah, we're working with SMRT, the architects, we're always looking for those things.
About the best one too.
Good luck.
Laura?
No questions.
Oh.
Thank you, Chuck.
And I don't have any questions, so thank you.
Sure, I've tried to get out of here twice.
I know, we called you back.
Oh, I have one more. I'm kidding.
Travis, would you like to come up for the athletics budget? See if you can beat Chip for his time.
So the same thing, you guys have the graphs in front of you, right? So athletics, the same as last year's 2% of the district's budget in the amount of $792,257. I'll just go through the breakdown real quick. The majority is payroll at 67% in the amount of $534,251. Second largest is transportation at 23% in the amount of $181,871. Insurance and other expenses at 2% at $13,135. Supplies at 5% in the amount of $41,000. Memberships, dues, and rental fees at 3% in the amount of $22,000. I think everybody is aware, but it should be noted that we continue to rely on the user fee system, as well as the use of our revolver account. This helps offset additional travel expenses and other large purchase items that aren't included in the annual budget. So with all that being said, we're not asking, like Chip, for any sort of increase. And we're going to continue to operate the athletic department with the current budget system that we have in place. I mean, it's been working very well for the last however many years I've been involved, so 14 years. So that's it. That's what we got.
Short and sweet. I think you beat you, Chip.
Yeah.
Tim,
Come on, somebody's got a
No.
question for Travis.
No,
Do we
I know
set-
Tim does.
hold
do we
tight.
subsidize teams to come out here?
Sometimes if we're struggling to fill a schedule, like we will offer to pay for their boat expenses, and sometimes their bus expenses on the other side, just because it's been really difficult this year to get games on the schedule. So I'm dealing with it right now with boys lacrosse. It's like very, very difficult. So we throw that out there and say, oh yeah, we'll pay for your boat, your bus, we'll get you pizza. So it's becoming hard.
We pay the refs then?
We pay the refs. We have no choice.
Well, they can
Yeah.
perhaps pay us back.
Does the Vineyard, do you know if the Vineyard has the same problem?
With scheduling games, absolutely. The
Yeah,
two of
they
us are
do.
probably the two toughest schools in the state to fill schedules, just because of that body of water.
Yeah.
There's an article in the Herald about the MIA, where sort of the Vineyard and here are in this odd little grouping.
Yeah. So we deal with it as best we can, and we try to throw everything at them just to get them to play a game. So
Can we find some weaker teams?
We're working on that. Yeah. Yeah. We'll chat.
Moving on.
Yes.
Chantal,
No,
Thank you. Yeah.
Laura,
No, thanks, Travis.
Bruna.
No questions.
Just a rough idea on how much does the Boosters Club support your budget? I mean, not this budget, but just in general.
I mean, I don't have an exact figure, but they're pretty generous to us. So if a team or a coach comes to us with something that they want that Matt or I specifically can't get for them, we'll reach out to them, and the Boosters is pretty generous to that. Yeah. But we could have a better, probably, working relationship with them, and we're working on that. Yeah.
Well, we got all those new helmets.
That was
From
a
a
donation.
donor.
Yeah. But that wasn't. I mean,
That was a donor.
it was a donor. Yeah, it wasn't through the Booster Club. I mean,
It
the money
was-
went through the Booster Club, but it wasn't
Yeah.
from them directly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course.
I volunteered at the Boosters a few weeks
Oh,
ago.
did you?
It
Yes.
was really fun, I have to say. But I was surprised to find how many, or how few volunteers they had at this point. So this is a plug for anyone out there. If you're interested in helping out the boosters, they're looking for volunteers. That'd be really nice. Get involved.
I think just across the board, I think Nantucket Friends of the Public Schools also, I mean, there's a lack of ability to bring in volunteers, and I'm not quite sure why, but,
Come on, parents.
yeah. Okay, you're waiting nicely on the wings there, but come and join us, Alicia.
I'm just going to give a couple of highlights. I
Okay.
can't ask you for money anyway, but that's fine. We're doing all right. I also would love to put a plug out there for volunteers, though. Can I add to that?
Of course you may, yes.
Always looking for volunteers. So just a couple of highlights. You won't see anywhere on here our PC Plus grant that we received from the state for our home visitors program, and that's only because it's $92,000, but it's something that we invoice at the end of the year and we get reimbursed for. But I just wanted to put that out there
Okay.
just because it's not on here for that reason. You'll also see, if you were to go to the bar graph on page 4, that we are projecting a fee increase of about $30,000. We're working hard to increase our fees so that they're still affordable, but they're also competitive for island rates. This is to help with staff salary increases. So we did not receive money from the town to do staff salary increases over this past year, so we're working within our budget to make that happen. We still have very affordable programs, but a lot of our rates were stagnant for a long time. So we're just trying to do small increases along the way to make up for that. And finally, as you heard from Libby, our appropriation is not changing, but that is okay. We're doing well financially. We have no concerns. We do have some staff gaps right now, part-time and full-time, but that is sort of part of the beast of the community school. We're always looking for part-time people. So we're not looking at that as a huge concern, but it's just something we're actively always looking to fill those spots. So, any questions?
Tim?
How are you gonna know if you've raised the fees too much?
I would imagine it would affect enrollment, but that really is not an issue that we're having right now. Our enrollment is through the roof across the board, more or less. I would say adult ed is the one area where we don't always fill immediately, but almost every program is. I will say at the pool, we're starting to see a slowdown now with Learn to Swim, and that's a good thing because we weren't meeting demand, and now we're starting to. So instead of everything filling in 5 minutes, now it's filling over the course of 24 hours, and that's good and healthy. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
No, that's right.
Laura?
No, thank you, Alicia.
Bruna?
No, thank you.
I'm just curious, with the programs that you're running, how, is it still an issue that affects your decision on the programs by other community groups running programs that get funded by grants, so therefore they can provide similar programming for free that the community school has historically run, or are you able to?
I would say we're constantly morphing, but we're never looking to be competitive. So when that happens, like I think a great example is that for many years we did art programming, right, as you know, Pauline, when I was growing up here. But with the Art Association, there's no need for us to do that anymore. So we sort of backed away from that. We don't offer art programming anymore. But as the community changes, there's always a new need. So we're constantly looking to see what that need is and then trying to fill in. So I wouldn't say that it really is negatively affecting us, because then we're just shifting to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have got a long list of votes and discussions ahead of us. The first vote that I'm asking for is for the FY25 calendar, which we looked at our last meeting. So may I have an approval, please, to accept the fiscal year 25 calendar? May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. May I have an approval, please, for the mini grant from Cape Cod Five to George MacLellan at NIS for the amount of $464? May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. May I have an approval for the mini grant for the Cape Cod Five to Joseline Rameriz at NES for the amount of $500? May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Can you hear the mood approvals? Can you hear the approvals and everything? You see their mouths, okay? Because I can't barely hear. Okay, make sure you move your mouth well. May I have an approval, please, for the Cape Cod Five grant to Garlen Maxson at CPS in the amount of $500? Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Approval, please, for Kaeyllane Dias at CPS in the amount of $470.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. For the mini grant from Cape Cod Five to Johanna Townsend for $500.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Vote approval from Cape Cod Five to Jenn Christiansen at Nantucket High School for $500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval, please, for the mini grant Cape Cod Five to Tom Peppard at Nantucket High School for $500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Vote to approve the donation from John and Joseph Young for $100 to the high school culinary program, and I believe that might have been for the Michael Shannon Fund, I think. Anyway.
That's what it says, yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Approval, please, of the funds from points earned at U.S. Foods for $215.65 to the high school culinary.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. May I have approval, please, for a check to Nantucket Elementary School for $2,475.40 from Hayward Photography.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I have an approval, please, for a fundraising check to CPS for $1,380.52 from Hayward Photography.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. May I have an approval, please, for the fundraising check to Nantucket High School for $1,584.19 from Hayward.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. May I have an approval, please, for the donation from Community Foundation for Nantucket to Nantucket Community School for $25,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval for the grant from CJP to NPS for $3,600 to support CPS and Applied Learning Leadership Discovery Program.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have an approval, please, for the donation from Island Lumber Company for $1,500 to the Nantucket High School gift account? Is that gift? I thought so. What's the gift account? For the woodshop department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I have an approval for the donation of the skate sharpening machine valued at $1,060 to the Girls Varsity Hockey Program from the Nantucket Police Charitable Association in remembrance of Sergeant Greg Furtado.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. A nice gift. Vote to approve the meeting, please. Meeting minutes, I do that every time, don't I? November 14th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Can we approve the meeting minutes of November 28th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And finally, may I have the transfer and invoice approval?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I did not mention my dear friend Robin Harvey, that when we would go through this list of donations, I don't know how many school districts go through this kind of list of donations, but Robin was always very good at pointing this out and reminding us all what a generous community we have. And this is just, I know this is a couple of weeks worth, but nonetheless, thank you to everybody. This is amazing, everybody's support for our kiddos.
Indeed.
Okay, subcommittee work. Who's got some reports on subcommittees?
So the
Go ahead.
Easy
it
for
away.
you to say.
the policy subcommittee met, and we're chugging along. Yeah, I think that's all we can say about that. We're getting there. So.
Okay. Tim, anybody? So we got an email around the food program meeting. It's sort of been put off a little bit, and I know there's going to be some meetings coming up. So
Great.
I'll
I don't
keep
think I
you-
got that.
no, I can forward it to you.
Okay.
We'll keep you updated on that. And then I am part of the TA negotiations, and so we have been meeting regularly, and I'd say that we're moving along nicely.
Great.
If I may, through the chair, the Cape Cod Collaborative will have its legislative breakfast early this year. It's going to be just January 26th, and Laura is our representative for Cape Cod Collaborative. It is open to any school committee members. If anyone is interested in going and hearing our legislators, who will be there for probably about an hour. It is in person, and it's in Harwich. I'm yet to know the location, but I will certainly share as soon as and I'm sure Laura can as well. So if you're interested, just let me know.
Great.
It's well worth it. I mean, even the Zoom one was really good.
We've got Winter Tide coming up, right, on
Yeah.
Thursday, which is always wonderful. I'm sorry that we booked an open house that same night, but that's always lovely. Any other comments or reports before we go on to the agenda for the next meeting?
We have student representative.
Oh, Bruno, yes, before we do that, thank you. You're right here sandwiched in between, Bruna. You're
I
on.
have kind of a big list of events that are happening at the high school. We have the Wintertide on Thursday. It starts at 5. It ends at 6:30. I hear we're going to have food from the culinary class, so I'm going to be there. So it's presented by arts, music, and vocational programs. I feel like everyone should come because it's supposed to be really good. Access testing began today for EL students. Winter sports are active again after the break, and we have a basketball game on Sunday at the TD Garden. That's pretty amazing.
Wow, that's
That
exciting.
is pretty awesome.
We hope. Sorry.
I mean, I hope it's not winning really
What,
bad.
are we going to buy coaches again? And for others?
Musical play rehearsals are underway. Student-led conferences are going to happen on Wednesday, January 24. Parents will be receiving information from the student's advisor. And the second semester, it will begin on January 29. And we have students that are going to be going to the Galapagos Island during April break. And I also wanted to talk about school lunch, because I have been hearing some complaints from the students about that. Yeah.
Would it,
Some, maybe, I feel like the biggest one is just that the food is pretty much the same order and the same food every week. So, for example, we have pizza every Friday, and then hamburgers every Monday, that kind of thing. And I feel like most people don't really like it. So, well, most seniors leave the school and buy lunch, but if the other underclassmen, they just bring food from home or eat the food that they don't like.
Thank
Yep.
you for that feedback.
Sure.
Appreciate it. I do, I appreciate it. Golf club scholarship, golf club application?
Are due on January 17th.
Okay. So they've had the public meeting with the parents and students?
Yes.
And the deadline's the 17th?
Mm-hmm.
Great. I will say that it has been requested to see if they will do a casual coffee chat for applicants, because I hear that there's a lot of students who have questions, because some of the things have changed. So that has been asked of the golf club to see if they would do an informal meeting. So if I hear more, I will let you know, or certainly let Superintendent know, but,
Thank you.
yes.
Through the chair, may I ask what you mean by they're asking about the changes?
I've heard from students that when they came to the presentation, that it was shared that there are some changes that will happen through the process this year that are different from past years. And so some students have requested or questioned if it would be possible to have an opportunity just as before going straight into a interview, if they could just have some time for an informal meeting, group meeting.
If I may answer, we don't have confirmation on that. What Mr. Brissett is doing, he's kind of reorganizing and trying to streamline the process. For instance, the application is all going to be submitted as a digital online submission rather than a paper submission.
Oh, good.
So they're just trying to streamline. Other than that, I think it's going to basically be pretty close to the same. They may cut back a little bit on the number of times that they see students, but I think that they're still in process of that. But if there's questions, what they should do, students need to reach out to Susan McFarland, and her email is on the application, and that's the best way to get answers on, any questions that they might have like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
of course.
So for next meeting, January 23rd, we'll have the bullying update from all the schools.
Yes.
Yep. And then student success program, is that Andrew Faselli?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then budget will be on special education, EL central office, VI, which will be Sherri, right, presentation?
Actually, if I can, the DEI presentation is actually going to be from Kamal McCarthy, the DEI director in the town.
For the town.
But
Oh,
we are
okay.
moving that in conversation with him yesterday. We will be moving that to February to be representative of Black History Month. And we'll
Okay.
be providing information about a potential honorary diploma for one of our Nantucket people of color in history. So it'll be
Oh, that's nice. Great. Well, if there's no other business, may I have approval for, motion to adjourn, thank you.
So
We wanted to-
moved.
Thank you, may I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. It's not easy seeing
It's not easy being green.
us, Travis.
Well, I emptied the box of tissues.
I'm so sorry, you
Are you
sound
okay?
I feel really crappy.